Hello.
Guys.
Krista, I don't know if you saw Mary Quinn said she's going to be listening.
I saw that.
Seeing her wonderful person yet.
Got it. Hi, Ann.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Gwen.
How's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's our last meeting of the day, so feeling pretty good right now.
It's gonna be the best.
I've been looking forward to it all. That's right.
I'm sure.
I
don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for sun.
Yes.
I feel like it's worse when it's dreary outside and I'm at home than if I'm at work and it's dreary outside. I don't know. Mentally, it just screws me up.
Oh. Because mentally you're like, oh, I should be on my couch.
Right. That's exactly right.
There's Ashton.
Sorry. Hey, guys.
Oh, no worries.
Ashton. John, your background's looking really cool wherever you are.
I'm sitting out on our porch. Kentucky River's back there.
Oh, wow.
There it is.
That's pretty cool.
Kind of a dreary day, though.
It's a nice view.
Let's see. Ashton, other than Kevin, who else are we missing, or are we ready to go?
I think,
Jennifer may have accepted.
yeah, Councilmember Masadi. But we can. Are we waiting on Kevin? Do you want to wait on him, or you?
He's in another meeting, and he said he would join if he's able. So we can go ahead and start. So I'll read the statement, Krista, and then we can get going. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency and Governor Beshear's executive orders regarding social distancing, this meeting is being held via teleconference pursuant to Senate Bill 150 as signed by the governor on March 30th, 2020, and Attorney General Opinion 20-05, and in accordance with KRS 61.826, because it is not feasible to offer a primary physical location for the meeting. Thank you very much. I believe Councilmember Masadi just joined.
I just did.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you guys so much for all the work that went into responding to the survey. I can say just from Keeneland's standpoint, it was incredibly beneficial just to be able to see where you all were in your planning. And I think if you haven't had a chance to look at the responses, we have very different properties and some different challenges, but there's a lot of similarities in where we are in the process. And things that I saw throughout was just the value in consistency and messaging, not only for our staffs, but our customers and the general public. And so the exercise and the task force that we are a part of, I think that is one of the end goals, is to be able to provide a consistent message. And there's a lot out there. There's a lot of different tools and guides, and I have sent you all a few that have been helpful for Keeneland as we have been developing our plan. And even after this document is signed, sealed, and delivered to the governor, I hope we can keep this communication between this working group, because I find it extremely beneficial. If there's something that's helping the Red Mile or the horse park or horse country, that there's always kernels that can help each of us. So I just wanted to thank you all for putting in that work. And then in terms of facilitating this call, I did have an opportunity to chat a little bit with Kip and Mary Quinn this afternoon. And since Mary Quinn's finishing up a call, oh, there you are, right on cue. That was actually pretty spectacular. So please feel free, Mary Quinn, Kip, to jump in. But for purposes of this call, I did circulate the how-to guide, if you will, that Commerce Lexington put out earlier this week. And from our standpoint at Keeneland, I felt like that was one of the most succinct reopen plans that I had seen out there. There's a lot of really copy heavy, intense, overwhelming novels out there that are a little intimidating, but I thought it would be good for this group. It could allow us to kind of speak to those primary buckets. And Kip, Mary Quinn, please raise your hand and say this doesn't work if you don't.
No. Just real quick. First of all, in sitting in on several of these over the past few weeks, and they've all been really good. I would say that you all are a little bit ahead in that you all deserve a bit of a pat on the back for, I think, being very thorough in the content that you filled out the questions. And I think a couple of things real quick. One is I think it's one of the things that's really been enjoyable and fascinating at the same time to watch is the collaboration and people meeting each other for in some cases, you all are very familiar with each other, but in some cases, people that have never met before working together. And I think, you all have done a great job with a lot of deep content and answering those questions. And again, like you said, there's going to be some commonality. And the thing that I would kind of urge you to kind of focus on are what are some of the unique pieces, what are some of the little bit different challenges that you all have in your space, because I think that's where, because a lot of this content is going to go to Quinn and the staff to turn this into a great piece, which I think they've got that content right there in one place, which is awesome. But really, I think I would spend my energy on, okay, what are some things that are a little bit different for us, that, the commonality, social distancing, all that stuff, but what are some others? So anyway, Mary Quinn, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add because you've sat in on more of these than I have.
Well, the only thing that I would add, I certainly agree with Kip and that you all get gold stars because the thoroughness to which you answered is just really insightful and also very helpful. So thank you so much for that. The only other thing I would add, and Quinn can back me up on this, if there are items where we feel like we as an industry need further clarification, it's okay to include those too. So if we've got questions and we need answers, this is another good opportunity to get those questions identified and spelled out so that we can make sure we try and track down specific answers that only people in equine tourism might be thinking about at this time. So we want to make sure that we do what we can to also circle back with you, with further guidance and clarification. So it's okay to have some questions too.
And kind of on that, on what Mary Quinn just said, if we have any requests for clarification, please let us know, because in the spirit of uniformity throughout the report, we've got 16 of these subcommittees. We've actually, Kevin and I have worked today to kind of develop a framework for the final report for what each final report for each subcommittee will look like. So in one column, we're going to have recommendations from each subcommittee. In the second, we're going to have requests for clarification. And then third, we'll have resources from, trade associations and links to national best practices and that sort of thing, just so we can lay it out uniformly. Because that column will be there no matter what. So if we've got any requests for clarification, just let us know.
I think I do have one question that I apologize if it's been covered at some point, but I know there's been a lot of discussion in different meetings that I've been in about if we are adopting best practices, if we are following guidelines, is there going to be some protection in terms of liability if we're doing these things in best faith and actually following through with those things? I know that's been a question in terms of both federal legislation and probably some state considerations as well. But as far as we're talking about our locality and then feeding up into the state, I think that's something that we have questions about.
Yeah, that's a great point.
A lot of questions around liability, and we can definitely make sure that gets included in the need more info column.
Also on that front, just in, the accountability, because with us being in the tourism sector, and Kip and I've spent some time talking about this, I mean, there is definitely a need to assure our customers that we are compliant. And so how do we ensure, or how do we communicate that in an effective way versus it in a consistent way too? And I know that you guys are working on some messaging and how to package that together, but I would hope that we're able to kind of wrap it into a bow so it isn't so complex on what compliance looks like. And then how and one of the things that we continue to talk about at Keeneland, it's like there's these practices and things that we're putting in place, but no matter what, the customer, our patrons, have to be comfortable. And we can we can have all the PPE and hand sanitizer in the world, but what can we do to give our patrons confidence that, or make them feel safe? So that's.
And Krista, there's another part of that equation too that we've seen with a couple of these committees as well. Is it's not only what you're doing, but expectations. What consumers, what are they going to do when they come to your facility when the reopening starts? So it's a two-way street there. This is what we're doing, but at the same time, here's our expectations for you if you come here, what we expect. And
right.
So anyway.
So Quinn, did everybody good? Okay, sorry, my mute thing was kind of messed up there. Just to make sure that we're delivering what you guys need in the format, because there is just, it's a little daunting in kind of here, let's just talk about all of the unknowns and concerns that we have. The reason I brought up the Commerce Lexington piece is that they've grouped their recommendations in buckets. And the buckets are, you've got your reopening requirements, and these are the kind of based on the 10 commandments, I guess, if you will, of telework where possible and social distancing and that sort of thing. I think that those are pretty basic, and most of us, I view that as kind of the foundation elements that everyone has to, in their own way, find out. Like we all have to enforce social distancing in some way, limit face-to-face interactions. And Kip, to your point, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the obvious, but what are the reopening requirements for our particular sector that we can make sure is included in our subcommittee report? So just as a quick blow through of these: telework where possible, phased return for this is more on the employee side, your staff.
Yeah.
Face-to-face interaction, providing PPE, hand sanitizer, restricting common area, clean, sanitize frequently, daily temperature checks, which that can be done at home prior to coming to the office, special accommodations for employees, healthy at work point of contact, educate your employees, and ensure that managers and employees participate in contact tracing. So maybe just in the interest of trying to gain consensus, can this subcommittee say that these reopening requirements don't give us pause? We feel fairly good that our individual properties will be able to, in some way, shape, or form, be compliant in our own ways. There's not going to be a uniform way that we all are able to do it because we're all so radically different. But I'm just trying to, like, how do we give you guys what you need? Concerns
Yeah.
from the crew or
Yeah.
Quinn?
Krista, just real quick, going into more of what the layout of this thing will look like. Before we get to each individual sector and subcommittee specific recommendations and guidelines, we're going to address all the 10 reopening rules at the very start of the report and make it very clear that every subcommittee throughout the whole committee is working under the premise that all these rules are going to be followed. So that'll be outlined in there. As far as obviously, what Keeneland does versus what horse country does, those are two very different things, right? So I've kind of started working on putting together the reports for some of these. And what I would say, I'm looking at the one I'm working on right now for we have a distillery and craft brewery subcommittee. We're going to break out the different recommendations and guidelines that a distillery would have versus what a brewery would have. And obviously there's going to be some overlap there. But maybe what I would say for this particular subcommittee is maybe, and Ashton, I'm not sure what materials what all the materials we've gotten from each of the members is, just because I haven't had an opportunity to look at everything yet. But maybe what we do is we break out here's what Keeneland and Red Mile do, and obviously you all do different things, but then maybe in another table, here's what horse country and specific equine tourism businesses do. Maybe go about it that way. I'm not sure. I'll leave it up to you all.
And just to chime in, Krista did a great job. She created a Google Doc, and I can share it with you if you don't have it.
It's a very thorough, well done.
It's each of the 4 venues' responses to the questions that Mary Quinn had sent out in terms of what is needed. And I'll share it with you right now so you can see it. But I think that that's a really good starting point, I think, for these recommendations. But I'll send that right now.
Yeah.
I will have some updates to ours as well. I mean, I think the thing that's where horse country diverges and almost sits into, we're not a bourbon distillery or a brewery, but we are on the whole dealing with people who are much, much smaller groups. I mean, we're different from the horse park even in that, where we're not putting through these large groups of people. The biggest group that we have on average is about 20 people. And that's, a 2/3 full tour. Our largest tour that goes on a regular basis is 30. So we're really trying to work through these things, but I understand we fall in a little bit of a different category, and most of our experiences are completely out of doors. So I know that we're a little bit different in that. And if we fall into a weird category, I understand, Quinn. So if I can be helpful on any of that, let me know, but I realize we're a little bit different.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, Quinn, thank you. That's extremely helpful. I think you guys can tell that we're all a bunch of overachievers and don't want to leave you all hanging on this. So we're all like, what can we do? But I want to use this time for since you guys are building the plan, I want to use this time to where it's most beneficial, Quinn, since you're the one building it, to get whatever missing pieces. And I think in terms of the way that I'd anticipated facilitating the call, you've already answered the reopening requirements. That's the blanket statement. So we don't need to really spend any time there. So maybe we spend a little bit of time talking about the public facing plan, understanding that many of us, including Keeneland, don't have that sorted out yet. I think all of us are, when you look through the Google Doc, you're going to see we are all very much in phase one. How do we get our employees back safely? How do we just start putting the pieces together and figuring out what our business is going to look like? But since we're all gathered here, the public facing plan that that Commerce Lexington has put as very, loose guidelines could maybe spark a few ideas on our front. But ensure appropriate space for public traffic, modified plans for intake of clients, displaying information in bathrooms and common areas on hand washing, limiting access to tight areas, providing hand sanitizers, masks, clean and disinfect regularly, use signage, floor markers to show social distancing. Those are very broad brushstrokes on what I feel like we probably, everyone on this call can accomplish in some way, shape, or form, but it's going to get into like our nitty gritty business of how do we have a horse show? How do we, have instant, racing and that sort of thing. But is that something, Quinn, that for this this document that is going to the governor, are we going to get that far in this recommendation, or do we need to be speaking to, Mary Quinn mentioned to me earlier today, like how we're going to seat people for a race meet? And I'm like, yeah, that I don't know. Like I can't make a recommendation on that because I have no clue.
Yeah, Krista, I think that's a great question. I think in terms of what goes in this report, we're talking about stuff that we can address right now and stuff that we have answers to right now. Because, I don't know about anybody else on this call, but I certainly don't have all the answers. I think everybody wishes they had all the answers, but nobody does. So I think for this report, I think we talk about what the recommendations that are specific to this sector that we can go ahead and firmly say, okay, we think we can recommend this right now. And then as far as the clarification piece, I think the key to that is identifying what we need clarification on. And at that point, I think maybe we'll if we identify those points that we need clarification on, the governor will see this. The governor and his administration, they're gonna review this document, and they'll say, okay, well, the Red Mile needs clarification on this piece. Horse country needs clarification on this piece. How do we build our reopening guidelines around what they need? So I think does that kind of help?
Kind of, but we're also, and this might be helpful, but we're all developing our own plans too. So how does that work? Like I know that Keeneland's, we're submitting our own plans.
So I think Krista, having spoken to Frankfurt several times this week, I think that there is going to be a number of redundancies, and I think that is A-okay. As a matter of fact, Secretary Jim Gray said, redundant, right? We're just trying to make sure that we have over communicated. We've got all of our bases covered, that we've got a good solid plan in place. And so what we're doing in this group is very much a macro look at our city and how our destinations, specifically from our side of things, how the tourism destination aspect, how we communicate readiness, thoughtfulness, preparedness as it relates to safety and wellness. What you're going to be doing at Keeneland is going to be a very Keeneland specific or Keeneland centric plan. Same for Mary Catherine over at Red Mile, and John out of the park. And so I think really I feel like the crux of our work is basically done and what you guys have already put together in your Google Doc, especially using the benchmarks that Commerce Lexington has put out. And so really, I think what's left to be done here is just if there are any deep burning questions that this committee has as it relates to equine tourism. So of course, John's got a large operation with many different facets. So does Keeneland. So does the Red Mile, for example. But for the purposes of the visitor side of that equation, what outstanding questions do we have? What do we need clarification on? What do we want to make sure that gets communicated on behalf of the visitor or the guest experience side of the equine industry? Does that help?
That's helpful for me. One thing that I might suggest, I don't know, from a timing standpoint, it may be that if you guys feel like from the preliminary work that this group has done gives you the foundation to be able to complete the equine tourism subset of this master plan, which I know it's a beast, if that's something that would be shared with this group for like a quick read through before it's signed, sealed, and delivered, that might be the most efficient way for us to say, yeah, that actually makes sense to us. If timing doesn't allow, I get that too, but that may be the most efficient way for us to provide input and context on things that may be missing. I personally don't have burning questions at this moment in time because I feel like it will be included in our plans that are specific to Keeneland. Does that make sense? But the rest of the crew, please speak up.
I think I have burning questions. And I guess I think we all want to do the right thing by our community and by our potential guests in the future. And I think that the only question I have is just I look forward to being able to kind of embrace this and say, all right, we feel good about this and we're not going to be opening up or doing something that our leadership is going to feel is challenging to our overall plan for how our community continues to pursue reopening. I mean, we're looking to, through this consensus project, have some guidance that we can share with our members that everyone can feel confident that we've done what we can and we're taking these steps in a very considered way. That's really the only question that I continue to have, is that we feel good that we can do that. And I think the timing associated with it, horse farm tours are not exactly lined out in a phased reopening the same way that Racing Without Fans is, or doing things inside restaurants or something like that. So I think we just want to make sure we're doing what we need to do and acting appropriately on a time frame that everyone agrees with.
So therefore, I think, Anne, that's an excellent point. And I think it's good that this committee would include as a part of that, questions to be answered column. When can tours resume? When can outdoor tours resume? When can indoor tours resume? Clearly we have to, have some considerations, but if I'm at the Kentucky Horse Park, I want to know, when can I open back up my museum? And when can I let people into my visitor information center, right? And so we just need guidance on when those types of tour programs can resume in earnest, assuming that we're going to all meet the basic requirements, spelled out for us. Because at your point, I don't think we have that yet.
Yeah, that's what I think I really pointed. That's what we're really concerned about, is not like definite dates, but like a timeline you can work around so that at least you have something out there in the distance that you can aim at. That's all we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think to the point of I don't want to get into a situation where I say, okay, when I look at this plan, gatherings of this many people can happen indoors as of this date. And I'm talking about gatherings that are smaller than that and out of doors. So should I be okay? I think so, but clarification that if we follow those things, that we're going to have backup, that it is okay. And then of course, I don't assume that people are going to just be pouring through gates, but I wouldn't want to have to pull back on that if we had somehow not gotten that clarification, unless the pullback was because of some kind of specific action based on our health and safety, if any updates should occur relative to infection rates and that sort of thing.
So Ashton, I just think those are great things for us to include as needing more guidance on, so that we can be ready. And I will say, I do think just watching cues from the governor, he is giving people some running room, right? So he made an announcement last Thursday about what was going to be coming third week of May for restaurants. So my hope is that we'd have some running, because all of us need some running room in order to kind of switch the lights back on. None of it is like, oh, okay, great, push go. It's not quite that turnkey. So, getting a sense of when those tours, and I know, for example, just by virtue of talking with the distilleries and the breweries yesterday, they're very much wondering the same questions.
Mm-hmm.
Can they do distillery tours again? They don't know.
Yeah.
They would love to know.
That's a great point. So with that said, Quinn, for this call, is there anything else that you need? And we can even, you guys know I love a Google Doc. I'm happy to add a tab to our Google Doc. And if we have
Google
questions.
Doc fan myself. So yeah, I was just, obviously I haven't had time to really dive in too much yet, but from what I can see, I think what Kip says earlier is correct. There's plenty to work with here. So, Mary Quinn, is there anything else you feel like we need? Because I think the big piece is just the pieces of clarification. If you have those, I would say send them to Ashton, and we can get those in. But Mary Quinn, was there anything else?
No, not on my end. I'll just double check with Kip and Ashton.
No, I think that's fine. Krista, if you don't mind adding, I've captured the ones that we've talked about in this call today, but if you wanted to add another tab to that Google Doc so it's all in one place, that's not too much.
What I'll do, Lord, no, we live in Google Docs. So I'll just add a row to the bottom, since everybody kind of has their own little column, and it will be questions for clarification. And as we think of them, and Anne, if you said you had some updates, we can be making those in real time. And
I would just ask that maybe just given the timeline for when we need to get this to Quinn, and if you all could maybe do that, is close of business tomorrow to soon for you all to add or edit. And
I'm doing mine right now.
Okay,
it won't take long.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. That'd be really helpful.
Okay.
Council member, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you for everyone for participating. These are such unprecedented times without any specific answers, that we're all just kind of trying to do our best. And I can just tell you from my perspective, it's so nice to have a community that's so willing to participate, and it makes me feel real good. And I hope the constituency appreciates what's going on, because what we're hearing is they're not really appreciative. They're anxious, they're unhappy, and they want back to normal real quick. And we're trying to do that, but in a safe way. So I just really appreciate all your hard work. It makes such a difference to be with such a respected group. Thank you.
I think we should also thank you all who are doing this work in our government. It is an incredibly challenging position, I think, to have made the decisions that you all have over the last few weeks, and that you'll be continued to be faced with. So thank you guys for taking that on and for serving so well and still taking time to participate with us.
Oh, you're welcome. We're doing our best.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It means so much to have you all here for our calls when you have a lot on your plates right now. So it means a lot. Okay, well, so Kip, anything from you? You good?
Nope, I think we're good. Again, you guys have got a great job. I think, Quinn's only challenge is going to be, there's, like you said, there's plenty of content there. And I think with adding those specific clarifications, once that's done, I think we're good to go.
Okay, perfect.
Well,
Well,
really thorough.
I think one thing though, and we talked about this last time, is the communication is so essential, because we really have to, just hit this hard, because in order for the public to understand what's happening, they need to have this communicated to them all the time.
Mhm.
And understand this, because if they don't, that's where you get the non-compliance, that's where you get the misunderstandings. And so that's such a big part of this. And Kip, that's your business,
Yeah.
but communication is key in this.
Absolutely.
okay, agreed.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll be chatting soon.
We'll be back in touch.
Thank you
Stay
very much.
safe.
Bye.
See ya.